Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, well, then you've come to the right place. We have a great show for you today, and I know that you're going to love it. Starting on in segment 1, we've got Skip's Brain. We've got the news. And then in segment 2 and 3, we have a special guest. His name is Patrick Bisher. He is a retired Navy SEAL who is now preparing other potential SEAL and Special Forces candidates. You're going to love Patrick. Great guy. But before we get into that, I have a special guest right here next to me. His name is Cedar Lance Coryell. Cedar, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you.
Well, Cedar, what's been going on in your life? What have you been doing?
Lots of Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts. So you like Boy Scouts? What do you like about it?
I like how it gets you outside.
Well, you can be outside right here. We got 20 acres here. You're outside much of the time, but there must be something more.
I like how you learn all the knots and the fire, how to make fire.
In fact, actually, that reminds me, you just made a watchtower by lashing poles together, and you named it something. What did you name it?
Fort Knots.
Fort Knots. Instead of Fort Knox, Fort Knots, which I thought was kind of clever. Well, Cedar, what are you going to be doing today? What's in your regimen?
School, school, and school.
That's right. You're homeschooled, aren't you? What do you like and what do you dislike about homeschooling?
I dislike the math, but the writing is one of the funnest things.
Well, what do you like to write?
I like to write about fiction.
That's odd because I know a fiction author, and he just happens to have a publishing company, so I might hook the two of you up together when you get a little bit older and get some novels under your belt. Maybe we can help get you published.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, Cedar, I got to get on with the show here, but tell the folks, give them some wise advice about handling firearms.
Well, always keep your finger off the trigger and always be prepared if something goes wrong.
Good advice. Finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. All right, Cedar, thanks for being on the Home Defense Show. We will have you on again.
Goodbye.
All right. Okay, my son Cedar, he is going back now to his homeschooling. All right, now I'm going to uncap this mocha frappuccino. Ice cold. In fact, it even has a few ice crystals in there. I like to get them just super duper cold and drink them down. All right, what have I been up to? Oh, let's delve deeply inside Skip's brain. I've been super busy canning food. We've been canning cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, tomatoes, green beans. I think in the last 2 weeks we've canned over 200 quarts of vegetables, and we're just getting started. Now I'm racing around trying to bring wood in. Have you folks noticed, am I the only one that's noticed the fall seems to be coming a little early? I mean, it's getting down to 48 degrees during the night, and that's just not normal for the end of August. It was doing that 10 days ago in the middle of August. I've noticed that the maple trees started turning about 2 weeks ago, and I'm just wondering, are we going to have an early winter? I don't know. Fall is kind of a bittersweet time for me. I have a love-hate relationship with fall. On the one hand, I love fall because I get to do so much bow hunting, and I love the fall colors, and the weather is mild, usually around 60 during the day, and it'll get down to 35 at night or something like that, which is fantastic. I can handle that. You get to start the fireplace up again. Those are the things that I love about the fall. I love the sights, the sounds, the smells, the hunting, predator instinct that wakes up again inside me. But it's also a prelude to winter. And I hate winter. I hate winter with a passion. But I guess you got to take the bad with the good, and it is what it is. So that's what I've been doing. Now let's talk about what is in the news. Let's go to bearingarms.com. Headline reads, "More judges arming up following recent uptick in violence around courthouses." The attempt on the life of Steubenville, Ohio judge Joseph Brucey may seem like an isolated event, but courthouses have been home to violence before. Just weeks earlier, an inmate stole a sheriff's deputy's weapon, killing the deputy and another officer before fleeing and eventually taking his own life. Incidents like this are disconcerting to those who work in courthouses, no kidding. But it's probably most disconcerting to those who are the most likely targets of violence, the judges themselves. That's right, because they are the bad guys, aren't they? They're the ones who tell the bad guys, "I'm sending you to prison." That does not make them popular. It seems that Judge Brucey's wasn't an anomaly in one other way. More and more judges are apparently arming themselves. Good for them. As violence inside and near courthouses grows, judges increasingly are choosing to carry concealed weapons, experts say. Judge Eugene Lucci, who presides over cases in an Ohio county courthouse and sits on the board of the American Judges Association, says there's a clear concern among his colleagues in the judicial world about safety. Lucci, who delivers talks to judges about protecting themselves, says he's seen an unmistakable interest in carrying concealed firearms. Quote, "Based on a number of requests that I get to speak on the topic, there's definitely an uptick in interest by judges," Lucci said, adding that while judges are more of a target for violent attacks than they once were, carrying a concealed weapon is not for everyone. "It's never wise to carry a firearm without training or experience," said Lucci, who takes refresher firearms training about 3 times a year. Quote, "That weapon, if you hesitate, based on lack of confidence and training, can be used against you, and you can make a mistake." Yeah, that's true. That's why we train. My opinion, I'm shocked that they waited this long to get armed, but I'm not surprised that it's happening now. When you look at the news is just, I know I say this every week, the world's going crazy. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, and every week I look at the news and I think, it can't possibly get any crazier. And then I'll read the headlines and go, okay, I was wrong. It's definitely crazier this week than it was last week. But you know what? On the upside, we were not incinerated by Kim Jong-un this past week, which is always a plus. That doesn't surprise me either. I think he's basically a bully. He's a bully with a couple of nuclear weapons, but Donald Trump stood up to him and said, "Listen, you mess with us and we will kick your stinking butt. We will incinerate you." And that's pretty much all you need to do to a bully. If you stand up to a bully with overwhelming force, they back down. What choice do they have? The question was, is he just insane or is he just a bully? I think probably he might be a little both. He's a hybrid. He's an insane bully. Another thing that bothers me is all of these protests that are going on all over the country. You know, the ones in Charlottesville and Boston and St. Louis. I mean, they're just all over the place. People running around tearing down historical monuments. Why are they doing that? I don't think it really has a whole lot to do with racism. The whole Confederate thing, slavery in our past. Well, slavery was in our past. It is in our past. We used to be a slave nation. We bought slaves, we sold slaves, we worked slaves, we owned slaves. And yes, they were black. Not all of them, but certainly most of them. And to deny that that's in our history by trying to erase every vestige of that in the public forum, I think that's foolish. Who was that said, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it? That was a novelist and philosopher, George Santayana, in about 1850. And he's right. You have to keep the past alive. It's there. Those monuments are there. They remind us that, yes, we made mistakes as a nation, but you know what? We corrected those mistakes. And it cost hundreds of thousands of lives to correct that mistake. Slavery was a mistake. The founding fathers, 70% of them knew that it was a mistake, and they wanted to get rid of it right out of the box, but they couldn't because 30% of the South didn't want that. Later on, we paid for that. But you know what? It is what it is. It was a mistake. It cost hundreds of thousands of lives, actually mostly white people, fought and died to get rid of slavery. So, yeah, we made a mistake. We paid for the mistake. But I don't think we should just forget about it and pretend like it didn't happen. It did happen, but it's fixed. And let's stop beating ourselves up for that. America, forgive yourself. And it wasn't even us. Come on, folks. It wasn't even our relatives. It was our ancestors. You're talking about 250 to 200 years ago. I mean, that's when all this was happening, right? A long, long time ago. It wasn't me. I never owned slaves. If you want to have a statue of Robert E. Lee in your front yard, or if South Carolina wants to have it in their town square, I don't care. I really don't care. To me, that is not a symbol of racism. I was speaking with a 21-year-old kid just this past week, and I asked him, I said, what does the Confederate flag mean to you? Because, he mentioned that he'd seen one on the side of the road on someone's house. And I said, what's that mean to you? And he says, well, it's racism. I said, why do you say that? And he says, well, because that's the flag that the Confederate Army flew when they were fighting to keep slavery. And it's partially true, but much of the South wasn't fighting to keep slavery. They were fighting for states' rights. They were fighting for Southern pride. They were fighting because they didn't like the North and didn't want to be told what to do. So it was a rebellion for certain. But I don't equate the Confederate flag or a statue of Robert E. Lee with racism, because I know people who fly the Confederate flag and are proud of that flag, but they're not racist. I know they're not racist because I know them personally. Now, some people will disagree with me, and that's okay. Hey, this is America. You can disagree with me. You can call me dumb, stupid, whatever you want. I really don't care. But that's my opinion on it. But the bottom line is that these judges should be scared. They should arm themselves because they're upholding the law, and we are quickly becoming a lawless nation. When these people, these protesters, not even protesters, they're just thugs, when they walk around destroying property simply because they don't agree with the message or the perceived message, that's lawlessness. That's what the barbarians did before Rome fell. If we give in to that, if we let the lawlessness occur and we don't fight against it, we allow it to happen, it will accelerate, and America will fall into anarchy. And I don't want that for my kids. I just don't want it. Wow. Hey, we are out of time for this segment already. Yeah, I got off on a tangent, and I just kept rolling with that. So, hey, judges, get armed, stay armed, get trained. What do we have coming up? In segment 2 and segment 3, we have Patrick Bisher, retired Navy SEAL, and we're going to talk to him about warrior mindset, and he especially likes to talk about his faith. So we're going to talk about both of those things. So while we're gone, I want you to go ahead and get hydrated, not with Frappuccino. That's just for me, the host. Go ahead, get some water, do about 50 push-ups, one-handed if you can, and when you come back, we'll be speaking with Navy SEAL Patrick Bisher. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Skip Coryell. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us. This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want to talk to you about keeping your kids safe around guns. I've never been a big fan of trigger locks, but I have to tell you, I have found a product called Child Safe One. It's a trigger blocker, not a trigger lock, and it works fantastic. I tried it out on my kids, and they could not get the Child Safe One off the training gun. I gave them 5 minutes. I sat there and I watched them, and they couldn't do it. Folks, I am satisfied, more than satisfied, that my kids are safe around Child Safe 1. Here's the good thing about it. I can get that lock off the gun in under 2 seconds, but my kids can't even figure out how it works. Child Safe 1 is a win-win for everyone in the family. My wife's happy because she knows the guns are secure. My kids are happy because they're safe. And I'm happy because when the wolf comes a knocking, I've got that gun cocked, locked, and ready to rock in less than 2 seconds. So go to globalgunsafety.com and get Child Safe 1 today. That's globalgunsafety.com. Check it out now and tell them the Home Defense Show sent you. Okay, folks, this is Skip Coryell. Welcome back to the Home Defense Show. We have with us today Patrick Bisher. Patrick is the author of a book called No Surrender. Patrick, welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you, Skip. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, Patrick, first off, thank you very much for your service to our country. I really appreciate it. I know you sacrificed a lot, and, boy, you just spent a lot of time in the military, did a lot of training, so thank you very much for all of your sacrifice, Patrick. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, no
all right. Patrick, my listeners may or may not know you very well, so I feel like I know you as well as you can know someone without actually meeting them and talking to them, because your book was very, very open and very honest and, boy, just an incredible read. So can you just give us a background? Who is Patrick Bisher?
Well, I am just like everyone else. I'm just at one point in my life I was lost, and I wrote the book to help others find themselves and find their way in life and not give up on their dreams or goals, but to trying to have them realized or just let me help them along their way in their path. What started out as me talking to groups of people and helping them turned out to be a few talking points, and that turned into the book. And why I talked to people and why I told them about my adversities and my struggles was to help them relate to me and help me relate to them, and to let them see that I'm a human being just like everyone else, and that I wasn't just a Navy SEAL, that I'm human. So as a young boy growing up, I was diagnosed with a rare hip disease, and that put me in braces and crutches, and I got made fun of because I was labeled a cripple, and I could not put any pressure on my left leg or walk, and my top of my hip bone deteriorated, and so I had to be in those braces, leg braces and crutches, for well over a year, and then I was put into a body cast, had surgery, and was in a lot of physical pain throughout my life. And so with that came my mentality that hung on to me like I was squatting 350 pounds every day. It was bringing me down, and I had the mentality of a victim, that everything was against me, life was against me, and I didn't have it fair. And throughout that, I just tried to prove people wrong about me and what I could do, and eventually that led me into the military, where I tried to become a Navy SEAL, and I did. And through what I found in that, instead of trying to be a SEAL, what I found is to be a team guy. And those two things are not exactly the same. I was in it for the title. I was in it to prove people wrong. But what I found through that, and through their culture, and through everything that they represent, is that it's a warrior mentality. It's a warrior's path, and it's very hard to walk that line. And I was changed. I was changed with my mindset. And what happened in the process is I was getting worked on by God, and I had ultimately gave in to my teammates, but I had suffered through addictions, through like pain meds because I was in such large amount of pain, and the reason behind that is because I had a few accidents while serving, and I had to get my hip replaced. So that happened, and while I was going through that process, I was a shell of the man that I thought I was, and I broke down, and I was destroyed mentally again. It was a wrestling match, I think, with me and God. And so eventually I finally surrendered to him, and that's why I named the book No Surrender, because it's a battle of life, not surrendering to man and what man can tell you to do, and my battle about not surrendering to God either. And eventually I had to do both. I had to surrender to my teammates in the teams, in the SEAL teams, and then surrender to God. And once I did that, a lot of things opened up for me, and my life was changed for the better forever.
Wow. Yeah, Patrick, that's just, people think of, on the outside looking, they think of Navy SEALs or Special Ops or all those, elite forces. They think of pride, they think of camaraderie, they think of the best of the best. And, I think what you're telling me is, well, yeah, they are the best of the best, but, what is that? I'm also a Christian as well, a very devout Christian. And what is that Jesus says, or it says in the Bible, if you want to be great in God's kingdom, you have to first become the servant of all. And that what you just said reminded me of that. And, serving your country, it really is serving your country. It's not about, hey, look at me, I'm a SEAL, look at me, I'm a Marine, look at me, I'm an Army Ranger, or whatever. It's about, hey, I'm here, I'm with the team, and I'm willing. There's something special about being a part of a team where you're willing to die for the person who's standing next to you. And, that is just, that'll make you tingle just thinking about a dedication and a commitment to that, because, there's not a whole lot of that out there in our society, not as much as there used to be. Mm-hmm. So, when I read your book, Patrick, it was, it reminded me of that, and it just made me feel, it was encouraging to me. So without even meeting me, you were able to inspire me and to encourage me. And, boy, and I think that's the big strength of your book, No Surrender, that you're going to help people, encourage them to reach down inside themselves and to become a better person than they thought they could, thought they could be. So, man, I just really appreciate that. Tell me, your struggle with God, because, certainly, civilians have the same problem. They go through life and they struggle with God. Maybe they blame God for certain things. And you were told at 9 years old that by a doctor who knows what he's talking about, that you would never walk again. How does a 9-year-old wrap his head around something like that?
Well, initial thought is denial. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk out of here. I walked in here. You can't stop me. Watch me. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's kind of how I went about life. Like, what are you going to say to me? I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. Right? Like, just watch me. And that was because I was so prideful, not really arrogant, not really conceited, but just full of pride, to the point where I had built up a wall around myself that no one was going to break into me. And, I could defend myself in all situations because I could do it on my own. And I didn't need anyone to help me. And so when the doctors told me I couldn't walk, that was, first denial. And then once those leg braces got put on me and I figured out what I was getting myself into, then I did become angry with God. And, why would you put me in this scenario? I'm good. I'm a good kid. I didn't do anything wrong up until that point. And I just didn't know why. Like, why would this happen to me? And those nights became long. The days were longer, and it felt like forever. I would cry myself to sleep, not knowing what was the reason behind this. And, bad things happen. Life sucks sometimes. And, you can either accept it and move forward or get ran over by it. And so for me, I was doing both. I was getting crushed by life, and the waves were crashing down on me every single time. It's like I couldn't get out of the surf zone. I just kept getting hit. And then that developed an anger issue with me and God the Father. So I struggled with that, and I wouldn't let him into my heart or into my life because I wanted to prove everyone else that I could do everything anyone else could on my own. And once I did that, I got to certain points or milestones in my life, but I didn't get there the way that I wanted to, or it just wasn't enough. Bad things kept happening to me, and so that was the struggle. And then finally, when I hit rock bottom, I gave in to God, and which is what He wanted me to do. I had to go through all of those things so that I could have a real personal relationship with Him, and that helped me find myself. And it's a work in progress to this day. It's not like I got it all figured out. By no means do I claim that. But life makes sense. I serve Him, and then He rewards me, and I give Him all the glory in the process. It's beautiful now, but it took almost 30 years for that to happen. Pretty much 30 years for that to happen. And so that is another reason why I'm so adamant about telling my story. It's to get the word out about, God. And it's not about me. It's not about, like, look at me, look what I did, because I'm not claiming that I did anything, really, in the military. Mm-hmm. I've served with better men than me, and mm-hmm. I had pride at that time in my life. I was very prideful, but I was so prideful that I lost myself because I needed to be humbled. And now I'm humbled because I've served with better men than myself, and I can look to them, and they're heroes to me. And now I can live life differently and try to serve the community, serve the people that I work with, serve in that capacity so that I can be a light to others in their darkness when they're suffering or when they don't know where to go or who to turn to. Like, I'm here, and here I am, and you can come to me, and I will try to help you as best I can.
All right. Okay. We're just out of time for this segment, Patrick. But when we come back, let's pick up right where we left off. And, I want to talk a little bit about, what you're doing now, the ministry, how you serve people, how you serve God. So we'll come back here in a couple of minutes. All right, this is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. While we are away, I want you to go ahead and do about 150 bends and thrusts, just get warmed up and get in the proper mindset. Because when we come back, we're going to be talking about a little bit about warrior mindset and how to serve God, family, country. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want to talk to you about keeping your kids safe around guns. I've never been a big fan of trigger locks, but I have to tell you, I have found a product called Child Safe One. It's a trigger blocker, not a trigger lock, and it works fantastic. I tried it out on my kids, and they could not get the Child Safe One off the training gun. I gave them 5 minutes. I sat there and I watched them, and they couldn't do it. Folks, I am satisfied, more than satisfied, that my kids are safe around Child Safe One. Here's the good thing about it. I can get that lock off the gun in under 2 seconds, but my kids can't even figure out how it works. Child Safe One is a win-win for everyone in the family. My wife's happy because she knows the guns are secure. My kids are happy because they're safe. And I'm happy because when the wolf comes a-knocking, I've got that gun cocked, locked, and ready to rock in less than 2 seconds. So go to globalgunsafety.com and get Child Safe One today. That's globalgunsafety.com. Check it out now and tell them the Home Defense Show sent you.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now.
Okay, folks, this is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Welcome back. You should be breathing hard right now because you've just done 150 bends and thrusts. If you're not breathing hard, it's because you're in really good shape or you're not doing what I told you to do. Either case, right now, if you're drinking a Mountain Dew, I want you to put it down and just kick it slowly over to me. That's bad stuff. It's kryptonite. Stay away from it. Just drink water instead. All right, we are speaking with Patrick Bisher, the author of No Surrender. Patrick, you went through a lot of stuff, and it taught you to trust God, and it sounds like it's what gave you your personal relationship with God. Can you just spend a minute and talk about your relationship with God? What is that like, and what exactly does that mean?
So my personal relationship with God is personal. It's exactly that. It's not me asking God to be my co-pilot when things get rough, that I give him the wheel and say, you take over. It's more he's already taken over, and I'm just doing his will, seeking his will, and having the right mindset going into life, going into every day, not only to have the warrior's mindset, but to have like a warrior mindset for God, and to be ready to put on the full armor of God, and to know that Jesus Christ is my Savior, and just to be filled with grace and mercy and love and compassion, and show that to everyone else. So having my relationship with God is through studying his word daily, drinking of his word so that I can never thirst again. Pretty much what that is for me. And so it's deeper than that. I mean, the more I learn about him, the more that I trust him, the better things are in my life. Not to say that I don't go through hard times, but just to know that he is in control. And, you know, I'm going to praise him, and I'm going to pray with him daily so that I can have that strong relationship with him and that strong trust in him through all things. I know that he's going to take care of me.
That's not something that happens overnight. Next month, in a few weeks, I'll be 60 years old. And I tell you, what you went through physically with the braces and the operations and the grinding bone on bone and all the physical pain, kind of been through the emotional ringer. You know, it's like 2 divorces, non-custodial parent, custodial parent. I mean, all those things. When you go through pain, when you go through suffering, It can drive you closer to God, or it can drive you farther away from God. You learned that at a young age. I mean, I think you're in your 30s now, and you figured it out, younger than I figured out. So my hat's off to you. And, you're maybe that probably sounds funny, but.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I did. I learned it at a very young age, and a lot of other people out there know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through both, where pain takes you away from people and away from God. But what I found was that pain is a teacher of life in some ways. If you feel pain, at least you are alive. You're blessed to be alive, and it will just tear you apart. Then you can gain strength from that, knowing that you're still in pain, you're still growing. It's really a source of growth. I don't think anyone at any point in their life has gone through life just succeeding at everything without going through the pain and the struggles of loss, because that's where you find your growth at. That's where you find if you're really made of something. No one wins at anything without going through that hard time. If you're going through that time, I would encourage you that you're on the right path. If you're going through something painful in your life, know that it will eventually have an outcome of worth, because without that, I wouldn't be who I am today without the pain and the struggle and just the unknown. Now, looking back, I feel like I'm a wiser and a better person for what I went through. And no one wants to do it at the time. But afterwards, right? Afterwards, you can see what you've gone through, and you're stronger for it.
When it comes to pain, I love retrospect, okay?
Right.
Back at it, what is that? M. Scott Peck, he says, a wise man welcomes pain and sees it as a way to grow. After 30 years of pain, my motto was, okay, I've grown enough, okay? Let's get to the fun stuff now, but, I can totally relate to you. Let's segue a little bit. We talked about warriors now. Warriors and Christianity, it's like 100 years ago, and maybe 50 years ago and beyond. Christianity was, if you talk about warriors and Christians in the same breath, it was like not a big deal. But it's like today, people, it's like they've lost sight of, onward Christian soldiers. I mean, being a Christian is not a wimpy thing to do. I mean, it's hard to do. It's got a lot of rewards, but still, it does take warrior mindset to do that, because it's like you just can't skip a day and say, well, okay, I'm not going to be a Christian. God, I'm not going to talk to you today. It's like a lifelong commitment. There's resilience and indomitability, no surrender. You just keep going and going. It's like you're sinking ever-ready battery or something. Talk about toughness, mental toughness, drawing your strength, that kind of stuff.
Well, as far as being mentally tough, I think that it's built on, and it's a process. You can't just find someone who's just mentally tough, because that requires them to have already gone through things that they can draw on to be mentally tough. And as a Christian, you are in the face of the devil. You are in the face of everyone else, and everyone else is of the world. So if you talk and you say something and it's God-breathed, then you are looked on as a fool to everyone else, and you'll be hated by the world because they first hated him. They first hated Jesus because of who he was. And he had to fulfill that, and he did, and we are called to serve him, and you have to be strong. You have to be mentally tough. And in order to do that, you need to be of him. You need to live in him. You need to read your Bible. You need to be with like-minded people. You can't be of the world and with God. You can't serve two masters. You can't love money and love God. You know, you can't do all of those things that the world sees as successful and everything else, because you're going to be torn apart. And the devil prowls around like a lion waiting to devour you. So how are you supposed to go up against something like that if you're not mentally tough? Well, you have to be in the Word. You have to be studying, and you have to be ready. More importantly, in order to do that, you just need to build on the little things one at a time and be ready and be courageous when God calls you to do certain things, and not say no. You know, be ready is what I would say, and where I'm at in my life right now. I'm ready to answer that call. So that has led me to be able to do more things that are mentally challenging, like speaking to people and going to churches and, you know, getting the word out, because I don't think a lot of people are doing that. Christians are kind of taking a back seat in life right now, and the way that the political game is working in the United States, and how certain types of people are getting a ton of attention on the media, and we're silent. I just encourage people to speak out and be strong and be courageous, and also stand firm in your beliefs, because it's not easy, and no one said it ever will be. So know that going into it. Be prepared.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like it's cyclical. I mean, certainly with the early church, you know, the first century and second century AD, I mean, they had all this persecution, and these people, I mean, they had to actually be willing to die for their faith, and many of them did. It's like today, I mean, what do we have to be afraid of today? I mean, people have become like, it's like they're wussified or something. Christians are afraid, oh, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to speak out. It's like I don't feel I have the right to do that anymore. And the thing is, this whole politically correct thing, it seems to be silencing a lot of Christians, because they just don't want to offend anyone, or they don't want to be ridiculed. You already said, to be a Christian, Jesus said, to be a Christian, you're going to be mocked. You're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be persecuted, you know, and blessed are you for doing that. So, you know, being a Christian and having a warrior mindset, man, if you're a Christian and you don't have a warrior mindset, man, you better get some. And, you know, all through the Bible, right? I mean, you go into the Old Testament. I mean, King David, do you think he was a wuss? I really don't think that he was. I think that dude was, he was like a Navy SEAL before they had Navy SEALs. He just went out and kicked butt and
Yeah.
did what he had to do, right?
Right.
So, what are your plans now? What is it that you're doing with your ministry? I know you're doing a bunch of stuff, Patrick. Tell the listeners about that.
I have a regular day job. That's where I mentor young and upcoming candidates that are trying to go into the military. So I mentor them, and I prep them, and I get them ready to get into that next stage of their lives. I do everything that I can physically and mentally to prep them and prepare them. So that is one of the things that I'm doing right now, but I'm also talking to businesses and companies throughout the U.S. and just telling them my story, telling them my testimony, getting the word out there, but also doing some consulting with those individuals or with teams or companies, whoever it may be at that time, just to help develop change in their mindset, change in their culture, to get their next best step forward, 1% at a time. And that's kind of the mindset that I've come to bring to other people. And I want to share that with who will listen and who's ready to receive that information.
Patrick, we're about out of time, but let's say someone has a son, they want to be a SEAL, they want to be in the military, they need help. A church wants you to come and speak to them. How can people get a hold of you to help or aid or be a part of your ministry and what you do?
They can reach out to me on any social media platform. It's just my first name and last name. Facebook, it's Patrick Bisher. Twitter, same thing. Email me at bisherconsulting.llc@gmail.com, and then we could move forward from there.
Before I let you go, The name of your book is No Surrender. You can go on Amazon.com and just do a search on No Surrender, Patrick Bisher, Bisher. Folks, I highly recommend this book. It will encourage you. It will inspire you in every aspect of your life. So you've got to read this book. It's fantastic. Patrick, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for your service to God Almighty. I appreciate you as a fellow warrior and as a Christian brother.
Oh, Skip, it was an honor being on your show. Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, folks, this is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. We got about a 2-minute break here. While I'm gone, I want you to run outside your house here real quick, whip out a telephone pole by the roots, and just do some log work for about 2 minutes, and then stick it back in the ground so you don't damage it, and then come back in. When you come back, we will be doing segment 4, the wrap-up, and I'll tell you exactly what I think. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, this is Skip Coryell, host of the Home Defense Show. I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat. It'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book, by yours truly, Skip Coryell. This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. It was great talking with Patrick Bisher, Navy SEAL guy. You know, I tell you, I was a little bit intimidated leading up to this interview because I really didn't know what to expect. I've read other biographies, autobiographies of Navy SEALs, and I just didn't know what to expect. Patrick was assertive. He was focused. He knew what he wanted, but there was also a humility with Patrick that surprised me. Maybe it shouldn't have surprised me, but I think it has something to do with his faith. Incredibly devout Christian man. And you really can't be a very good Christian if you don't have humility. You know, Jesus Christ, he was very humble, but he was also a bit of a badass, overturning the money-changing tables at the temple and talking about the Pharisees, the big Jewish leaders of the day, as whitewashed sepulchres, and basically told them, hey, you stink. But yeah, Jesus was gutsy. Patrick, he's gutsy. Some of the things that we were talking about before we started recording, because I don't know Patrick, other than reading his book, and didn't know what to expect, but I was talking to him beforehand and said, hey, I want to talk about warrior mindset and how it pertains to family, and he was very assertive. He says, well, I really don't think warrior mindset, has a lot to do with home defense. And I asked him, I said, well, how many kids do you have? And he hesitated, and he said, I really don't feel comfortable telling you that. I said, really? He says, well, yeah, I don't really know you, and I don't feel safe telling you that. I don't want you to know that about my family. And I thought, that kind of illustrates my point. But I said, Patrick, what I was going to say is, okay, I've got 3 kids still at home, a 6, 7, and 11-year-old. When I talk about warrior mindset and home defense, if someone were to attack your children or threaten your children or put your children in danger, you would have that warrior mindset. You would unleash the beast, and God help anyone who tried to hurt your children. When I talk about warrior mindset in home defense, that's what I'm talking about. But we just moved on from there. But once we got talking, we had a lot of things in common. Certainly our Christian faith. We have a lot of that in common. I don't even know if he knows that I'm a Marine vet because I didn't tell him that. But, we have the warrior mindset in common. And we discussed that quite a bit. But I was just impressed. I was all around impressed with Patrick Bisher. You need to read his book, No Surrender. Go to Amazon.com, do a search on Patrick Bisher, Bisher, No Surrender. It was an incredible book. It's odd how you can read someone's book, and if it's written well and it's intimate and personal, you go ahead and you read that book, and then you feel like you know them personally, even though you don't. And that's kind of how I went into the interview. I felt like I knew him better than I really did. And he threw me a couple of curveballs, but that's okay. I guess you'd expect that out of a Navy SEAL. Hey, the Navy SEALs, they're the best of the best. So I'm just happy that we could have him on the show. If you liked Patrick, stay tuned to Frontlines of Freedom. You guys know that I'm co-host for Frontlines of Freedom. That's the #1 military talk show in the country. We're on 134 stations nationwide. I've hooked him up with Colonel Denny Gillum. And so Patrick is going to be interviewed on Frontlines of Freedom sometime in the next 3 weeks. So you can go to frontlinesoffreedom.com, find out where it's being aired in your area, and you can pick up Patrick Bisher, another interview with him. I like what he's doing. I like the concept of being a mentor to SEAL candidates, any type of special forces candidates. In Patrick's book, he talked about the mental toughness. And he said, when I was going through SEAL training, it never occurred to me to ring the bell. He said, other people would think, gosh, I'm testing myself here. Do I have what it takes? Am I going to ring that bell? And Patrick said in his book, well, those are the people who rang the bell. If you don't ring the bell, it's because it never occurred to you to ring the bell, and it was never an option. You have to go in with a one-minded focus. Never, ever even think about failure. And it took him a couple of tries. He was injured during the first phase of his training, and he gutted it out through Hell Week. But then they found out about his injury early in the second phase, and they do something called a rollback. He had to have surgery on his shoulder. It took several months to recover from that. But then he gets picked up by a subsequent group of Navy SEAL candidates, and he starts off in his training where he left off. So, yeah, it took 2 tries. That's a trait of a winner. You don't give up just because you got hurt. And Patrick, my gosh, to be told at the age of 9 that you will never walk again, and then to defy the doctors and your parents and your peers and everyone around you who says, you're never going to walk. Patrick, just stop. Become a computer programmer or something. He said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be a normal kid, a normal person. And boy, he became so intimate with pain that when he got into BUDS training in the Navy SEALs, it's like, hey, I'm home. And it wasn't a big shock to him. And my hat's off to anyone who can go through training like that. I mean, sure, Marine Corps boot camp was tough, but it's only like 11 weeks. And it's not as tough as SEAL training, not even close. So, you got to respect the guy. I hope in the future I can meet Patrick in person and we can sit down and talk about the military, our warrior mindset, and most important, our families and our God. Go to Amazon.com, Patrick Bisher, Bisher, and get No Surrender. You're going to love that book. It will inspire you to no end. We talked a little bit in segment 1 about the protests that are going on all over America. And they're not protests. It seems like they're orchestrated. And I've heard stories that people are being paid and they're being bussed from one city to the next to instigate fights with police and protests and things like that. I don't know if that's true. I don't have the intel to know. All I know is what's on the news, and what can you believe in the news. I don't know what to believe. But I do know that if you allow people like that to run around the country, destroying things, hurting people, instigating lawlessness, that the civilization cannot survive. So we have to crack down on these people. I mean, sure, we can listen to what they're saying, but when you start to be violent, when you start to destroy things, you have to stop it, because what you allow, you teach. You can't allow destruction, vandalism, people hurting other people simply because, they voted for Trump, or they're carrying a Confederate flag, or for whatever, because they have the right to do that. I don't see Trump people walking around hurting people just because they're black or just because they're gay or whatever. There has to be some tolerance for people who don't think the same way that you do. That's the way that it is. It's got to be that way. That's what America is, right? Our freedom of speech, our freedom of expression. I would like to see the far left become more tolerant, but I got to tell you, folks, I am not real hopeful when it comes to the far left becoming more tolerant, because I don't think that's who they are. I think that they are out to destroy America. And you know what? It's easy to destroy. Destruction is easy, because all you're doing is taking something that someone else made and trashing it. It doesn't take any intelligence. It doesn't take any forethought or any character. In fact, it takes lack of intelligence and lack of character and lack of morality to destroy something that someone else created. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to destroy a country, a civilization, a way of life. And I don't think we should let them do that. How do we stop them? I'm not sure. Our politicians are supposed to be stopping them, but quite frankly, I think they're half the problem. Let's look for ways to stand up to these people, legal ways I'm talking about, and see what we can do about it. We are quickly running out of time for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show, but I want you to remember our advertisers and our sponsors. We've got Elite Firearms and Training with Larry Jackson. Don't buy 2 or 3 bad guns before you buy a good one. Just go to elitefirearms.us and make the first gun the best gun for you. He will personally fit you. Also go to Firearms Legal Protection, and for $9.95 a month, you can have the best legal protection that money can buy. And you want to keep your kids safe from guns while you have them stored there in your house. So go to globalgunsafety.com, and buy Child Safe 1. That will lock up your guns safely. Okay, well, with all this anarchy and chaos going on, you folks need to get trained. Go to Amazon.com, pick up a copy of my book, Civilian Combat: The Concealed Carry Book. You will learn a lot, and it's stuff that you can actually use in your everyday life. You're going to need training, one-on-one training with a seasoned professional trainer. That would be moi, Skip Coryell. Go to Midwest Tactical Training website, mwtac.com, Michael Whiskey Tango Alpha Charlie.com. We're running advanced classes up until October 1st. Then I go bow hunting. And of course, we have the basic concealed carry classes year round. Okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Next week, we are going to be speaking about apocalypse and disaster movies. I love the Tremors movies, The Giant Worms, with Burt Gummer, the Jericho series, Walking Dead, Zombieland, Pandemic, Meteor. There's a lot of ways the world can end. But until then, remember, your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember God, family, country in that order. It's important how you live, and it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!